Hello everyone! Welcome back to our simple automation tutorials with Selenium in Java. In this tutorial, we'll delve into the CSS selector as a Selenium locator. Let's dive in. This video is a part of the Udemy course Simple Automation Testing Tutorials with Selenium Java. For more information, check the description below the video. CSS is the language used to style HTML pages. We can utilize the CSS selector locator strategy to identify elements on the page. CSS selectors are efficient and provide capabilities similar to XPath. We'll discuss the advantages and disadvantages of using different types of locators in a separate video. In this video, our focus is solely on how to use the CSS selector. The CSS selector functions similarly to the simple locators. We can also search for elements using attributes such as element tag, ID, and class. Furthermore, we can search by any other attribute of the elements, which enhances the flexibility of our queries. However, what makes the CSS selector truly powerful is its capability to combine locators, a concept we will explore later in the video. For now, let's learn about each locator individually, just as we did in the previous video with simple locators. Let's begin with the ID attribute, as we're already aware that it uses the unique ID attribute of an element for localization. Let's move on to the IntelliJ idea. As always, we will create a separate class, so you can easily find the code in the course. The final code can be accessed on the website testing101.net. We've named this class CSS Selector Test. Additionally, we've included a method to initiate the Google Chrome browser in maximized mode and open the web page we've prepared for this video. Now, let's proceed by adding the code to locate an element using a CSS selector. This method is almost written in natural language. The syntax involves using the driver.findElement function with the CSS selector. We need to provide the element's ID value, which should start with a hash symbol. It's easier to illustrate with real values. Let's navigate to the website. On the website, we've set up a form named Find Elements. Within this form, you'll encounter various fields, checkboxes, and buttons to practice working with CSS selectors. For now, let's keep it simple and focus on finding the first name field. To accomplish this, we need to inspect the element using the Chrome DevTools. Upon inspection, the corresponding code is highlighted in the right panel. In this case, the first name input field corresponds to the input element. Within the opening HTML tag, there are multiple attribute value pairs such as name, ID, class, type, and more. Our goal is to copy the value of the ID attribute. Previously, we emphasized that tutorials are designed with elements having unique values. However, in real-life scenarios, it's crucial to verify that uniqueness of the value before writing the code. Neglecting this step can lead to unexpected outcomes. Let's now learn how to verify the uniqueness of tags, attributes, and values. Click on the Code area in the Elements tab of the Chrome DevTools. Then, press the Ctrl+F combination on the keyboard. Upon doing so, the Find by String search field will be displayed. Within this field, we can search for elements, tags, attributes, and values using CSS selectors and XPath selectors. Let's paste the copied first name ID value into the search field and check the results. After performing this action, the element with the corresponding value will be located within the Elements tab, and the value will be highlighted in green. Another observation to make is that 3 values have been found. This could indicate that the ID value is not unique. The issue arises because when we search by text, the query verifies if the text is present in the HTML DOM. However, the same ID can be present in multiple places, often within CSS. This is why CSS selectors utilize a distinctive query style. When working with CSS, you must employ a specific syntax while searching for elements. In the case of searching for an ID, Your query should commence with a hash symbol. Therefore, in our situation, we need to search for the ID attribute value that starts with hash. Let's input the correct value into the search field to check the actual outcome. This time, the entire element from the opening tag to the closing tag will be highlighted in green. Additionally, we'll notice that only one element is located in the DOM, signifying that the ID value is indeed unique. As a result, we can use it for our query. Now let's return to IntelliJ IDEA. Now we need to insert the ID value with a hash symbol into the find element by CSS selector method. In the end, the code should look like this. Additionally, we'll add the click method to make the code's behavior visible to us, the end users. Let's run the code by clicking on the play icon. This will open the CSS selectors page. Within a couple of seconds, you'll see the cursor in the first name field. This means that the element was successfully found. Now let's move on to learning about the next selector. In the same manner as demonstrated in the previous video, we can locate an element using its class attribute. The process is similar to how the ID CSS selector works. The difference is that instead of using the hash symbol, we need to use a dot before the class value. Let's duplicate the code for the ID and modify it for the class attribute. Now, let's check the valid value on the website. This time, we'll focus on the checkbox, which has the unique class value. We need to copy the value of the class attribute from the Elements tab. Similar to the ID, where we needed to add the hash symbol, in the class we need to add the dot before the value. Now we can check if the class is unique on the console. Once we paste the value into the search field, we can see that only one class has been identified. And the input element is highlighted in green in the Elements tab. As the value is unique, we can use it for our automation purposes. Let's go back to IntelliJ IDEA. Place the class value with the dot at the beginning within the CSS selector. Now we can execute the code. Once again, the Google Chrome window will open, and you'll notice that the checkbox gets checked within a matter of seconds. This means that the element was located and clicked using the class CSS selector as the Selenium locator. Now, let's explore the next selector. Regarding the tag selector, we won't delve into details here as it works similarly to ID and class selectors. However, there is a crucial point we need to highlight before moving to the attribute selector. On the UI form, you'll notice a drop-down which has a unique tag, select. We used it in a previous video. The challenge with the tag selector lies in the absence of a dedicated symbol for tag searches. If you wish to check the elements of the select tag, you simply type the word select into the search field. As a result, you will find everything in the HTML DOM with the value select. In our example, it has found 47 instances with the word select. Unlike other selectors, in CSS, you cannot directly check if a tag element is unique using the CSS selector alone. But you can check it with XPath, which we will discuss in the next video. Let's return to IntelliJ IDEA, where we will put the value select without any additional symbols into the CSS selector. Upon running the code, the Google Chrome window will open and the account type dropdown will expand within a few seconds. This means that the element was successfully located using the CSS selector. Now, let's proceed to learn about the next selector. The attribute selector. With the attribute selector, you can locate an element based solely on the name of the attribute. However, most often, you'll need to search for an attribute value pair. As you can see, you will need to use a specific syntax with the square brackets. Let's check it. In IntelliJ IDEA, we'll use the same code structure as before, which highlights one of the advantages of using the CSS selector. You only need to modify the value. No changes are necessary within the method itself. Let's navigate to the website to identify a valid value for the attribute. This time, we'll focus on the Submit button. Sometimes there is no real ID attribute in the element, but there can be a similar attribute, such as data test ID, in our case, which can also be unique on this page. We need to copy both the attribute name and its value and put it into the square brackets at the beginning and the end of the attribute value pair. The final structure should look like this. And we can see that the attribute value pair is unique for the page. Now let's return to IntelliJ IDEA and paste this as the valid value into the CSS selector. You might notice the presence of 2 backslashes before the double quotes. These are valid Java syntax. You don't need to remove them. It's important to note that we'll cover Java basics in due course, as it's a big and complex subject. For now, our goal is to demonstrate that automation testing isn't as scary as it might seem. Let's execute the code. As usual, the Google Chrome window will open in maximized mode, and within a few seconds, you'll see the required fields highlighted in red. This means that the button was successfully located and clicked using the CSS attribute value selector. However, our tutorial doesn't end here. As you've likely noticed, 3 selectors, ID, class, and tag, remain the same as in our previous tutorial. A logical question is, which locators is better to use, simple locators or CSS selector? We will talk about the pros and cons of using different types of locators in a separate video once we will learn XPath locator. The true strength of the CSS selector as a locator lies in its ability to facilitate grouping selectors. As we mentioned before, the difference from the simple locators and the big advantage of the CSS selector that you can combine CSS selectors together. For example, you can combine a tag with an ID, a class with an attribute value pair, or even all of them together within a single query. However, it's important to emphasize that this approach is considered bad practice, because it will make your tests unstable, and we will talk about it when we will be developing a simple framework. By now, we've learned about individual CSS simple selectors. To locate elements by ID, we use the hash symbol. For classes, we used a dot. Tags don't need any additional symbols. But what if we wish to search for a tag along with an ID? It's a straightforward process. Simply write their individual selectors one after another. Given the tags lack specific symbols, the query should begin with the tag itself. The structure would look like this. Tag, then the hash, and then the ID value. Let's check one more example of the grouping selector. A class combined with an attribute value pair. You similarly place the dot before the class value and add the attribute value pair in the square brackets after it. You can even perform a comprehensive search with all the selectors together. Let's check how it looks in the real example with the UI form. Let's try to search for the first name field by class. In previous scenarios, we always had unique values, so it was easy to find the element. In real scenarios, if you search for anything, you find multiple values in the DOM, and you need to search among them to find the element you are interested in. In our case, you can see that there are 7 search results for the class value we used. So we need to click on the down arrow to search among the results. On the 4th element, we can see that the first name field is highlighted on the left side of the screen. And the input element has the name first name value pair, so we found the element we were looking for. Now let's use the attribute value selector to make the search query find only one unique element. Put the name first name attribute value pair into the square brackets and paste it into the search field right after the class value. The final query should look like this, and we can see that only one element is found in the DOM. Let's make this query even more complex, just for educational purposes. Let's add the tag and another attribute value pair to the CSS selector. It's not a good automation practice. You need to make your selectors as simple as possible. We will talk about this in future videos. But for now, we want to show you how grouping CSS selectors works. So, copy the full long value and put it into the CSS selector value in the code. When you paste the value into IntelliJ IDEA, you can notice that the slash symbol is added before the double quotes. Don't change it and let's run the code. As usual, the Google Chrome browser window will open, and in a couple of seconds you can see that the cursor is focused on the first name field. It means that the element was successfully located with the help of the grouping CSS selector. CSS selectors are a huge topic and we skip a lot of this tutorial. We want to show you only the basics before we can write a real automation test. Let's learn one more important feature of the CSS selector. Descendant selector or space combinator. When we check the HTML DOM of the page, it mostly looks like this. To simplify, we will refer to it as the parent-child elements. For example, when we expect the dropdown on the page, we can see that the option tag is inside the select tag. Sometimes, in the child element, there is nothing unique to search for. Here, CSS selectors can be used to search for the element using the space combinator. For example, to find the parent element ID and the child element attribute, let's investigate this on the website. We need to inspect the dropdown element named account type. In the DOM, you can find the same tags, select and option. In our case, select is the parent element and it includes 3 options. Let's check if the ID attribute of the select parent element is unique. Let's copy it and paste it into the search field. As you can see, only one element is found and it is highlighted in green. Now, let's use the class attribute of one of the option elements. Put a space after the ID value of the select element, then put the copied class of the option element with a dot. When we use this as the search query, 2 elements are found now, not just one unique value. And we need a single unique element for our query. That's why let's add the attribute value pair, where the value is equal to personal. The final query will look like this. The ID selector of the parent select element, then the space and the class, and then the attribute selector of the child option element. Now only one element is identified. Let's use the selector in IntelliJ IDEA. There are 2 steps to follow. First, click on the dropdown. By using the ID CSS selector of the parent select element, next click on one of the options using the complete selector. Let's run the code and check the outcome. As usual, the Google Chrome window will open. Then, the click will happen on the drop-down and we'll see 2 options, personal and business. However, the click on the option won't happen. The browser window will close and we'll notice that the test has passed in the logs. So, what happened? Welcome to the reality of test automation. We design tutorials in a simple manner to avoid confusion like this. Unfortunately, in reality, it's rare for everything to work smoothly. In this case, we faced a false positive result. We saw that the required element wasn't clicked. Now we need to debug the code to determine why the click didn't happen and why the test status is marked as passed. But this debugging will be covered in another video. For now, we are unable to proceed. On this rather unpleasant note, the tutorial concludes. In the next lecture, we'll learn the XFAST locators to find elements on the page. Don't worry, we'll also cover how to click on options in the drop-down in the future videos. The final code will be available in the lecture materials and on our website testing101.net. We hope to see you in the next video.